incoherent, and it shocked me. Then he all of a sudden started talking about my mom, which passed away about 3 years before my dad died. And he said that he was talking to my mom, Lorraine, and she, is fine, that, she's asking them to come and join him. And then he started talking about my uncles, which, a couple of them, died in the 50s, 60s, and one of them died in World War II. And he's talking about them, that they're asking him, again, to come and be with them. And then all of a sudden he looks at me and goes, well, you need to go home now, son, because I'm going to die here in a little bit. And by the time I get home and I get a phone call. He passed on, I guess, 20 minutes after I left. But I'm just wondering, again, parallel worlds. Was my mom still maybe alive and in another, existence, and he was talking to her? Because, I mean...
I have no. I mean, what a moving story, Gary. Thank you so much for sharing it. I'm deeply moved by this, and it makes us think about how limited our understanding of elderly people with conditions prescribed as Alzheimer's, diagnosed as Alzheimer's and dementia might be. Yes, okay, there might be impairment of function, there might be brain problems, etc. But one of the things going on in these states of life, of impaired functioning in ordinary reality, by my observation, is that a person in this condition is often traveling a lot in other worlds, in other realities. I mean, the consciousness, soul might seem to be rather loosely attached to the body, maybe partly or mostly gone, but it's not gone completely. It's traveling somewhere else. It sounds as if Dad was with Mom and with other family members in the realms where they're now living, preparing for his own transition to that realm, and giving him guidance and information on all sorts of things. You can call this a parallel life, or you can call it the interlife, the space between this world and whatever will follow a period of transition after death. You can call it the afterlife. I would think, if this were my dad's experience, that he's been traveling fully conscious and fully compos mentis in realms where Mom and the other relatives are living right now. He's seeing how conditions are with them. He's getting ready to make his own transition. This has been part of what's been going on. And what a blessing to have him come back with that clarity and focus to speak to his beloved son. I mean, that's a lovely thing. So, it makes us think that when we hasten to describe the elderly because they're not with us and they're behaving strangely and they can't get it together, as suffering from this or that, we might be forgetting that part of what is going on is that although they may be missing to us and missing from ordinary reality, they're not missing to other worlds. I mean, they're traveling, they're doing things in other orders of reality, including the afterlife or the interlife. The afterlife would mean the life beyond the physical world. The interlife would mean the period of adjustment and transition between a life here and a life that you're going to select somewhere else in some other reality. So, I mean, that's a very, very moving experience, and it's the kind of thing that many of us are going to have to think more about, not only as we ourselves age, as we think as caregivers and loving family members about the situation of the elderly. I mean, we are living by and large in Western societies longer than before, and it seems that often we're living with less of ourselves present and compos mentis in ordinary reality. But as I say, that doesn't mean that soul or consciousness is gone completely. It may have left the ordinary world but be operating somewhere else.
Oh, wow. Another thing I'm thinking, too, from what you're saying and stuff, too, like if we exist on other parallel worlds and stuff, I mean, I could be young and this old 66-year-old body and be out doing what I like doing. I mean, wow. So I wonder how many existence you could be on, how many different parallel worlds. Like today they were talking about there's over 2 trillion galaxies out there.
Yes.
In the universe, and I'm willing to bet there has to be more, especially if there's parallel universes.
Well, Gary, I'm quite certain you're living on at least 1,000 of those other universes. Probably we all are. You get a headache trying to figure this kind of stuff out, but in practical human terms, as I say, one of the ways of learning about it is to start spending more time with your dreams. Try to recollect more dreams, try to write them down, try to see where there's a common theme and an ongoing story in dreams, and you may discover that you've got your own long-running Star Trek series, or your long-running medieval series, or your long-running parallel reality series where you made a different choice. I think that this is one of the ways, this dream stuff is one of the ways that we ordinary humans get to understand on a human level what the science of this is really telling us, because science is very sympathetic to the things that you and I are talking about, the trillions of universes, the many worlds hypothesis, etc.
Well, I got to ask you a question, Robert. You said you've been doing this for about 40 years, and I'm just kind of curious, how did it start with you? I mean, what brought it on where you started having these dreams, and how did it affect you when you first started getting those dreams?
Well, I sometimes tell people the dream world is my home reality, Gary. I mean, I died and came back as a kid. That's what the doctor said when I was 3 years old, and I was pronounced clinically dead in hospital in Tasmania, which is the island off the south coast of Australia. Bitter winter, got pneumonia, pronounced clinically dead, and then the doctor said to my friends, "Oh, your boy died and he came back." We didn't have the term near-death experience in those days. I actually don't remember anything much of what happened when I was clinically dead at age 3. I remember it was pretty hard living the ordinary world afterwards. Then I was 9 years old in Australia in a Melbourne hospital. I died again, pronounced dead again under a surgery for an emergency appendectomy. And that time I left my body, and I had the most vivid recollection of all of this, and I ended up in another world where I seemed to live a whole life into my 90s with people who were humanoid, but not altogether human. I mean, if my mother's Irish family had been around me, I might have called them the fairy people. I don't know, but they were a different kind of people, beautiful people. I seemed to live a whole life among them, age 9, and I come back to my surprise because I've forgotten I have a body in an operating room. And I'm amazed and somewhat disappointed to be back in the body of a sickly 9-year-old in a Melbourne hospital. And it's hard for me to explain this. It's hard for anybody else to hear me. The first person who explained to me what was going on in a matter-of-fact, common-sense way was an Aboriginal kid from the indigenous tradition. He just said, oh, yeah, we do that. You know, we get sick, we go and live with the spirits. When we come back, we're sometimes the same and sometimes not. So what I'm telling you, Gary, in response to your question, is I've always been a dreamer. I mean, I've always known that there are worlds beyond the physical. I've always known that you can get there without psychedelics. I would say you can get there without the extremity of a near-death experience, too. There are other worlds right next to us. I've always known we can see the future and see things across time because, you know, I survived that way since I was a kid. I've always known that the dead are alive and are accessible in dreams. I've known that since childhood. I mean, how I've applied this in my adult life is varied. I've done different things in my adult life, but, you know, through all the phases of my later life, I've used my dreams. And when I say dreams, I don't just mean sleep dreams. I mean states of consciousness when you're drifting. You're not asleep, you're not awake. Hypnagogic area is the $5 word for it. I found that a very productive and creative area to get impressions, to get guidance from the kind of source that you learn to trust, to embark upon lucid dreaming quite easily. So I've done this actually all my life. When I say 40 years, I'm talking about the period of time in which I've been keeping journals as a discipline. I've kept journals on and off since my teens, but I've kept them with dedication for 40 years. And I'd say to anybody who wants to get into this, wants to learn more about it, that your journal, where you write down your dreams and other experiences, and synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, is another way of dreaming wide awake and with the world around you. If you write down your experiences of dreams and synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, you're running your own scientific log, your own data book of experiences, and you're going to find it's a treasury. And your access to this kind of information will grow and grow because as you get in the habit of recording things, in a sense, your dream producers or your dream sources get more interested in giving you more because you're ready and poised to do something with it. So I've kept a journal for a very long time, and as the author of up to this moment of 25 published books, sounds like a lot, but the creator in me wants to do a lot more. I published 25 books in the conventional way, but my journal is the most important book I have written, the most important book I will ever write. And you might find that for yourself. So a journal that includes your dreams, your experiences of synchronicity and other things is going to be your very best tool for getting deeper into all of this.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it. I've had dreams seriously where I go to bed and I have a dream and it's like my whole life, is in that dream. From a certain age, like I was a teenager and then all of a sudden I was an older man, and everything played out like I got married. I did everything different than what I do now in my life, and then I wake up and the funny thing is, I don't know how many people do this, but when I go to bed, I usually remember my dream in the morning. I really do. When I have a good dream, which I have quite a few of those, and no, I don't do drugs, that I remember the dreams. And a lot of times, if I don't finish the dream, if something happens, I get interrupted in the middle of my dream, I'll go back the next night. And believe it or not, I'll kind of like, you watch a TV show and you go back for the next episode. I have dreams like that where it'll continue on for maybe a couple of nights in a row with the dream continuing. Have you had that happen, Robert, with you?
Oh, yes. I'm enjoying this conversation a lot, Gary. You're obviously a natural at this. I mean, we can go on with the dream. The dream is interrupted. We've got to get up. Yeah, you can go back to it. Go back to it the next night if it's got that kind of traction, that kind of tractor beam to pull you back in. Or you can actually go back to it any time. One of the core techniques I teach in my approach, which I call active dreaming, is what I call dream reentry. You sound like as if you do this in a natural, organic way, but for other people, they might want to learn a certain practice. Dream reentry means you have a dream, you have a personal image with some energy. You learn to go back inside and go on with it. Now, some people need to do that because they've run away from something in a dream. The dream is not great. They don't like it. They're scared of something. They try and get out of the dream. They leave it as a broken or aborted dream, which is what a nightmare actually is. A nightmare is an interrupted dream. You're so scared of something you don't want to stay there. You run away, try to slam the door and say goodbye to your dreams. The antidote to nightmares is to go back into that space consciously, confront what is there, and deal with it. But, of course, there are much more benign, much more attractive and entertaining reasons for going back into a dream, which is you're enjoying yourself, you're enjoying the story, you want more of it, you're in a fabulous adventure, you like to carry on with it, you're in that parallel life, you like to see what's going to happen. So whether you do it the next night, as you say you do, which I have certainly done myself, or whether you do it at some other time, for example, you're awake in the middle of the night, you have to go to the bathroom. The dream stopped because you got out of bed. You might find that if you relax in bed, you can go back into the dream right then and there. You might find that 30 years on, you're remembering a dream that you ran away from or that you never finished and it's got some attraction for you. Even 30 years on, you might be able to go back into that dream. I mean, I teach people how to do this consciously. We don't use drugs. I don't use psychedelics. I've never used them. I don't judge them. They work for you, or good luck, but it's not part of my scene. In my workshops, which I teach a lot of, as you know, I mean, we use shamanic drumming, but that's percussion, that's sonic driving. I call the drumming a kind of sheepdog for the brain waves that gets you where you need to go quite easily. In my own private practice, I don't use anything much except like you. I'll put myself in horizontal meditation back in bed, and I'll wish myself to go on with the dream, and I'll do that whenever I feel like it. And usually, or not always, but usually it's possible to do it. And this is a great technique to learn. I mean, it's fun, it's enlightening, it can help you deal, as I say, with nightmare terrors and scary things, and it can give you a whole lot of home entertainment, I mean, to go on with an adventure. By continuing the dream. So that's a practice that you seem to do naturally, and it's one that is the center of my own practice and teaching.
Well, that's why I mentioned earlier, sometimes like when you go to bed, you have a dream, sometimes you wake up and you say to yourself, well, was that dream reality or is this reality? I mean, which one is real? And you know what? It's funny. I go even as far as if I have a dream and it doesn't play out the way my mind likes it, the next night, I'll go back and I'll get back into that dream and I'll change it totally, yes. To come out the way I think it should have. Closure, I should say. And I've done that quite a bit where, I had a dream and it turns out like I married the worst woman in the world. And then I go back, and I change it to I married who I married, and in my life totally changed, but it gave closure to that dream. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize when they have, you know, like my wife, you know, for 41, going on 42 years, I ask her all the time because sometimes she'll talk in her sleep. She claims she doesn't remember